Good morning, everyone. It is a tremendous zechus to be able to learn with you. I'm sorry that I'm not there with you in person, but Baruch Hashem, thank the Rebbe Shalom so much for modern technology that we have the opportunity to learn together, even if we are separated geographically. I apologize. I do not have a printout of all of the sponsorships. I know that we have our annual TALMUD Torah sponsorship of the Tilson Family from Am Yisroel, zechus for besuros, tovos, or Yisroel. And I know that our Kislev TALMUD Torah sponsorships are Josh and Becca Friedman and Sammy and Malka Esterson. I apologize that I do not have the specifics of those sponsorships in front of me right now, but Am Yisroel will post it in the description in the YouTube description, as well as in the podcast description, and Am Yisroel on the chat, as in the WhatsApp chat as well. But we thank all of our sponsors for their incredible dedication and generosity. And as always, we hope that our Torah will be a zechus in Yahrzeit for Klal Yisrael, a zechus to bring home our hostages, b'shalom, b'karav, and that our holy soldiers should be successful b'chol ma'aseh yadehem. Today's daf is Kuf Samech Aleph 161, a little bit of a shorter shir today, because it's a shorter daf. So we are continuing in our journeys of Get Pashat and Get Mukosher. So remember again, in yesterday's daf, in the new parak of Get Pashat, we've been introduced to two different types of shtaros. There's what we call a get pashat, which is a regular shtar. What does it mean, a regular shtar? There's writing, there's a tovos, there's a TORAH, there's a boilerplate, there's a transactionally specific part of the shtar, and then there, of course, there are the signatures of the witnesses, all taking place on the same side of the paper. And then we've been introduced to the get mukusher, and the get mukusher again has the text, the TORAH and the tovos on one side, the signatures of the witnesses seems to be now, according to everyone, on the opposite side. The way the get mukusher was written is it appears that the TORAH was on top, the tovos, the boilerplate part, was on the bottom. There seemed to have been, there's a machlokas exactly how the get mukusher is written. We'll see that in Am Yisroel today. And the genesis of the get mukusher, as we saw in yesterday's daf, were the kohanim, the short-tempered, short-fused kohanim who would divorce their wives very quickly without real cause. So Chazal, in order to kind of pump the brakes on that process a little bit, created this get mukusher in order not to create any type of documental confusion. Instituted to get mukusher could be written in any type of document type of setting. Okay, so with that, the Gemara says as follows. So we are picking up on Kuf Samech on base 160b, and we are picking up in Yahrzeit 6 lines up from the bottom. V'nechosh dilma zayif. So the Gemara now asks an interesting question. So now remember again, so the Rashbam points out over here, v'nechosh dilma zayif, because of my deboy, v'chasimi sahadi. So here's what we're concerned about. The Rashbam says, "B'sof hashtar shemukush shari chasimi sahadi berosh hashtar ben aksharim hove ina edim chasum b'sof hashtar." Here's the issue we have with the get mukusher. You get mukusher, the witnesses' signatures on the bottom. So let's work the opposite way. In a regular get, so how do you know that something hasn't been forged? I mean, the truth is, something could always be forged. That's why I have certification of documents as well. But in general, we have the writing, and then the signatures of the witnesses are underneath the writing. If anything else appears underneath the signatures of the witnesses, I know that it was forged. But here's the problem. On a get mukusher, the witnesses are signing on the back of the document. So because they're signing on the back of the document, don't we have a concern that people could write whatever they want on the front part of it and add in all types of additional information? So look at Lashon Gemara. V'nechosh dilma zayif, v'kasa my deboy. Maybe somebody's going to write whatever they want on, or as the witnesses signed on the shtar thinking that it said X. And then again, someone's going to write some additional information into that shtar. V'chasimi sahadi. And the witnesses signed on the back. So because they signed on the back, who knows what's been added to the front? To which the Gemara says, no, not a problem. In the front, what we'll call in the front part of the shtar, the get mukusher, which has the actual information written on it. At the end of the information, they write the phrase, Hakol sharir v'kayum. Everything has been upheld and has been established. So that's kind of like the end. The end. Hakol sharir v'kayum. The Disibay Kol Shar V'Kaim. Look at the Rashbam says Dichsid B'Sof Hashtar Shar V'Kaim Dahainu Hochacha Shal Sof Hashtar Ve'in Yochol Od Lahosif Acharav. So again, essentially they added this phrase Hakol Shar V'Kaim or Shar V'Kaim. Everything is appropriate, everything is established, everything has been upheld. The end. And therefore, if there is any writing after that, I know already that that's a forgery, that there has been document tampering. Says the Gemara V'Nechosh. Dilma Kasa my deboy, V'Hadr Kasa was Shari Kayim Achrina. So the Gemara says, well, 1 second. What's to stop someone from going ahead? Okay, so it says Shari V'Kayim. Then, add in more text, more information, and then write a second shar v'kayim, and you can still forge it. To which the Gemara says, no, that's the whole point. Chad shar v'kayim kasvinon, trei sharir v'kayim lo kasvinon. We only write one sharir v'kayim in each document. That's all we do. So because there's only one sharir v'kayim, therefore halacha l'maisa, we know if you saw, if you see two shar v'kayims, you know that ultimately is a forgery as well. The Gemara says v'leichosh tilma mochik leila shar v'kayim v'kasav ma'idiboi v'hadr kasav shar v'kayim. Oh, so what we assume at the following? Maybe there was a shar v'kayim in the document. So remember again, you had that phrase: everything is established and upheld. The end. Maybe someone erased it, wrote in new information, and then wrote shar v'kayim again. I mean, that happened again. So, right? So, in other words, so still the document's not tamper-proof. To which the Gemara says, no, Rabbi Yochanan, this is actually fascinating. So the Gemara says, no, we're not concerned about that. Why not? Because Rabbi Yochanan said, Tuluya mikuyemes ksheira. So Rabbi said, this is fascinating. Look at the last Rashbam on the daf. Rabbi Yochanan tuluya mikuyemes ksheira. TORAH sofer. Let's see in a regular document. The sofer made a mistake. Scribe made a mistake. V'egia v'tala teva oshtayim bein shita l'shita v'achar kein kaima b'sof hashtar kimo shanu kosin teva plonis de bein echidi shar v'kayim. So this is very interesting. Let's say a sofer makes a mistake in a document. It happens. So he wants to insert a word or two in between the lines. So he can insert it, and then let's say on the bottom of the shtar, he writes like this correction was made, this insertion was made, hakol shar v'kayim, and he establishes that change on the document. In other words, there is a proper way to edit documents. So if something is left out and you need to add it in, there's a way to add it in, but of course, again, the addition has to be certified on the document itself. However, top of Kuf Samachav 161a, machak pasal v'afal pishim mekuyam. The moment there's an erasure in a document, that invalidates the document, even if the erasure is certified. In other words, there's an idea. Say if you add in something in the shtar, again, the sofer left out a word, he left out the name, he left out a detail. He can insert it, literally between the lines, and then on the bottom, the witnesses kind of certify that this addition was done and we saw it in Allah's gift. All is good. But once there's an erasure by definition invalidates the shtar. Once we see stuff erased, even if it's certified. In other words, this was almost like a safety measure that Chazal enacted by shtaris, that you can't start erasing stuff. You need to add stuff in, not even take stuff out. You add stuff in, do it, and certify it. Erasure will fundamentally destroy the shtar. Take a look at the top Rashbam, Kuf Samachal, such exciting Gemara. Machak Pasel, Af Mashigia Alov, so again, we're gonna talk about this a little bit more, but the idea over here is that once there is an erasure, even if the erasure is certified, right? The witness is right. There wasn't a sofer erased this in front of us. No, an erasure ultimately again is going to be apostle, even if it's certified. So let's finish this up. The Gemara says, "V'lo amru machak paso ela b'makom shar v'kayim ukeshir shar v'kayim." Oh, so the Gemara says, one second. It's not true. It's not as expensive as we thought. When do we say that an erasure ultimately again invalidates the shtar? Only if the erasure took place or was done in the place where shar v'kayim would have been written, and the space of the erasure corresponds roughly to the size of what shar v'kayim would have taken up. In other words, you can erase something in the shtar as long as that erasure is certified. But the one part of the shtar that you cannot erase, you can't tamper with, and if you do, you totally destroy the validity of the shtar, is on that phrase shar v'kayim. So in other words, if we see any erasures over there, we see any tampering over there, even if it's certified, it undermines the authenticity of the shtar. So in other words, shar v'kayim is like the stempel, it's the seal, it's the tudat kashrut. It's literally again the certifying piece of the shtar that says this is done, this is correct, everything's been upheld and is appropriate. And if there's any form of erasure there, again, even undermines the validity of the shtar. Incredible. So so the idea over here is, so therefore Allah. So remember again, let's go back to what we were trying to talk about before. We're trying to figure out, it would appear that a get makusha opens itself to a lot of forgery. Because since the witnesses are signing on the other side of the document, so bepashtos, again, you can write whatever you want on the front side. The Gemara says, no. It says shar v'kayim. And shar v'kayim says that's the end. That's the end of the text. Maybe you'll write more text, put a second shar v'kayim. No, one shar v'kayim, and that's all. Maybe he'll erase the shar v'kayim and go ahead and write more, and then write shar v'kayim at the end. If we see an erasure about the size of a shar v'kayim, or where a shar v'kayim could have been, that invalidates the shtar. So therefore, if there was a shar v'kayim there, and a person erased it and wrote more, then put a second shar v'kayim, and we see an erasure the size of a shar v'kayim, that is going to raise a red flag about the validity of the shtar. So it's really incredible. I'll just point out also, just as I think there's a profound Musar Haskell, right? The Gemara says tluya nukuyemes kshera machak pasal. In a shtar, you could always add stuff in, but you can't erase stuff. The moment you're right now, truly, Gemara defines it as really erasing the shar, really as erasing the shar v'kayim. But lamaisi, you can't erase stuff. And I was saying, I think there's also just a profound Musar Haskell with this, like a lot of times in the realm of personalistic change, of tshuva. Sometimes one of the hardest things about tshuva is this feeling that we need to erase parts of ourselves. We all have flaws, we all have shortcomings, we all have these different things that really prevent us from self-actualizing. And so I feel that in order to really become the best version of me, I have to erase pieces of my identity. And that erasure, even just thinking about it, let alone doing it, is very traumatic. I'm supposed to erase pieces of me. And the truth is, I think it's very often a misunderstood piece of tshuva. Tshuva doesn't require any erasure of self. Tshuva requires, like the Gemara says, tuluya mikuyames. A lot of times what I need to do in life is adjust, is pivot. I need to rechannel different things. We saw this in Sidkas HaTzadik. Reb Tzadik taught us that there's no such thing as a bad koach in life. Every energy, every passion that we have, it's just a question of how you use it. You never really have to erase anything about yourself. You just have to rechannel it in a different way. And I think this is the metaphor of being a machak pasal. If you think you have to erase things about yourself, you're wrong. That's incorrect. So what do I have to do? Tuluya mikuyames. A lot of times I have to write new stuff in between the lines. A lot of times I have to write like a little bit of a new sentence. I have to add in a word, move this around, add in a piece of information, pivot, change, move, insert. That's the avoda in life. But machak, erase a piece of myself. Possible? No, chas v'shalom, don't erase anything about yourself. Tluya mikuyames. Just figure out where you have to make the right insertions in order to put yourself on the right path in life. Incredible. Says the Gemara, Kov Samach Aleph 161, 3 lines down. So as I say now, we're transitioning to Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba. Right, so Yirmiyah bar Abba, he held that, again, remember, everyone holds that you're signing on the back of the get makusher, but Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba was of the opinion that halacha l'maisa, you sign achori haksav u'kneged haksav mibachutz. So literally, again, opposite the writing. Okay. In other words, because remember, again, the way a get makusher worked was there was text, blank line, text, blank line. So Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba says you write opposite the text. So the Gemara says, "Lechush domak siv megavoy, my deboy, umachtim sahadi yisiri me'avroi." Why are we concerned that maybe someone's going to add on additional text on the front side and just add additional witnesses? In other words, the idea is you have a witness signing for every line of text. Well, why can't a person add on additional text on the front side of the shtar and just add on additional witnesses on the back side of the shtar? And you could tamper with the shtar, no one will ever know. And they could just say, I like Eidim. Yeah, look, people like different things. Some people like Eidim. They say, I like having more Eidim on my shtar, and therefore, again, I'm adding on additional Eidim. Amar Lei, this is incredible. It's fascinating. Mi sabris Eidim kisidron chasimi, Eidim mimata lamala chasimi. So this is fascinating. It will say, in Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba's model, we thought like this. If you can imagine, you have, right, next cycle, I'm going to have to do like PowerPoints. Right? If you say, if you get makusha, right? So you have a line of text, blank line of text. So then you flip the shtar around, and for every line of text, you have the signature of a witness. So we were assuming that the witness signs right on the other side of the paper, like opposite the line of text. So here's a line of text, and the witness signs on the opposite side of the page along the same line of text. So the Gemara says that's not how they sign. They sign perpendicular to the shtar. So if you could imagine for a moment, right? So you have the shtar, right? The line of text ends here, and then you turn the shtar sideways, and the witnesses sign their names from like the bottom of the shtar going up. So in other words, they start their name on the last line of the text and write upwards towards the top of the shtar as far as their names go. So they sign perpendicular to the shtar. Now, what does that do? Because they start their name at the last line of the text, if you try to add on more lines to the text, it's clear that it's forgery, that's manipulated. Why? Because again, it's not going to correspond with the signatures of the witnesses. Gadlus. So essentially, again, the Gemara suggests Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba the witness doesn't sign along the lines of the text. Rather, again, the witness is signed perpendicular to the text, starting their name from the last line of the shtar, writing upwards. So the Gemara says as follows. They sign from the bottom up. So they start again writing their names from the bottom line, perpendicular upwards towards the shtar, towards the top of the shtar. So essentially their names are perpendicular to the text. So as opposed to we've always assumed that witnesses sign along the width of the document, it turns out that no, they sign along the length of the document, perpendicular to the text, starting their name from the last line of text. So the beginning of the names of the witnesses corresponds to the last line of text, prevents any forgery. I says the Gemara 1 second. The guy is a lishita achrona. The guy is le Ruvain bahadei umiskasher ben Yaakov Eid. Okay, somewhere says the kasha. Listen to this. Well, maybe we start being sort of the following. So let's say one of the witnesses, his name was Ruvain ben Yaakov. So maybe someone wants to do like this. Someone's going to go ahead and say the lop off the last line of text. Okay, so you'll say, well, hold on a second. If you lop off the last line of text, then what are you left with? You're left with Ben Yaakov, right? Assuming right here you lop off Ruvain, right? You'll have Ben Yaakov. So the Gemara says, but you could still manipulate a shtar like that. Why? The Gemara says, Miskasha Ben Yaakov Eid. That could still be construed as a valid signature. This is because we learned Ben Ish Ploni Eid Kasher. The halacha is actually if you sign as a witness and you sign not with your first name, but rather again, Ben your father. Ben your father, technically speaking, that is a valid signature. I will say, which by the way is just a fascinating idea, right? That if you go ahead and you sign a document not with your name, but you only sign Ben your father's name, that is actually a valid signature. So what's like, just hashkafetly, what's the pshat with that? There's a beautiful idea by the Belzer Rebbe. The Belzer Rebbe says in Az Yashir, he says, Zekeli va'anveyu, Elokei avi va'arom amenu. This is my God, va'anveyu, I'll make him great. The God of my father, and I will exalt him. And the Belzer Rebbe says so beautifully, he says, a Yid, the Jew, has two relationships with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There is Elokei Avi, there's the God of my father. Part of my relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the Masorah that I receive from my father, right? The Chinuch that I receive from my father. It's my father's relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu that I inherit. That's what I have initially. But the goal ultimately, again, is also to create Zekeli. Is to create my own relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In other words, I should not subsist for all of life just on my inherited relationship or just on my conferred relationship. That's Elokei Avi. Elokei Avi is incredible. That's how we get started in life. The God of my father. That's how I start. But my avoda is Zekeli. What's my relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu? What's my unique relationship with the Ribono Shel Olam? What is my Zekeli? So you see on a halachic level, also, normally you sign Ruvain Ben Yaakov. But technically speaking, if Ruvain signs just Ben Yaakov, that works well. It's the halachic. In other words, the hashkafic duality is mirrored in the halachic duality. So when Ruvain Ben Yaakov has two identities, he has an identity as Ruvain Ben Yaakov, and he also has an identity of Ben Yaakov. He has an identity of Elokei Avi and an identity of Zekeli. Incredible. So the Gemara says, so still, the document can be manipulated because halacha l'maisa, You can lop off the last line, and although you lopped off Reuven, you still have Ben Yaakov, and Ben Yaakov could be construed as a proper eidos, a proper witness signature. To which the Gemara says, no. What do we do in order to prevent this? Tichsiv Reuven Ben Bechad Dara v'Yaakov Eid Iluye. So this is incredible. So no. When Reuven signs, they purposely make him sign Reuven Ben on one line and Yaakov Eid on the second line. So if you take off a line of text, if you lop off a line of text, you're lopping off Reuven Ben. And all you're going to be left with is Yaakov Eid. And the Gemara assumes that this is not a good signature. The Gemara says, but maybe it is. The Gemara says, but Yaakov Eid could still also be construed as a valid signature. After all, we learned this nan. So the Gemara says, Yaakov Eid, this nan, Ish Ploni Eid kosher. Oh, because what's halacha l'maisa? If you sign a document, just your name and Eid, Shmuel Eid, Yaakov Eid, that works. So therefore, even though you got Reuven to sign Reuven Ben on one line, so even if they take out one line, so it'll only have Yaakov Eid, but Yaakov Eid is still a valid signature. So once again, the shtar is not tamper proof. To which the Gemara says, the low cost of Eid. Interesting. So the Gemara says, no. In a get mukushar, we don't write Eid. We don't write Eid. Isn't that interesting? So you'll write Reuven Ben Yaakov, no Eid. And what we do is you write Reuven Ben on one line, Yaakov corresponding to a separate line. So if you lop off a line of text and it just says Reuven, right? So it's just going to say Yaakov. That by itself is not a valid witness signature, and therefore by definition, if the shtar has been tampered with, you'll be able to see it. That's incredible. The Gemara says, sorry. So that's our first answer. We don't write Eid. The other possibility is the olam the kasev Eid. No, you do write Eid. So we could be talking about a case over here where even if halacha l'maisa you do write Eid, it happens to be in the case in question, we know that that's not the signature of Yaakov Eid. Okay, so now we're getting a little bit more like case specific. The Gemara is suggesting maybe it's talking about a situation where, okay, everyone knows Yaakov. I don't know, there's one Yaakov in the locale, but we know that that's not Yaakov's signature. So even if it does say Yaakov Eid, we know that it's not a signature, and therefore, halacha l'maisa, we'll see if the document has been tampered with. We'll say Am Yisroel, Kuf Samachal 160, when Bida Chasim is Yada, Lav Di Yaakovu. Okay. The Gemara says, Vidilma, Bishma Dabu Achasam. So we'll say, maybe what Reuven is doing in this case over here, maybe when it says Yaakov Eid, and even though it's not a Yaakov signature, maybe the shtar should still be valid. Why? Maybe Reuven is signing with his father's name. In other words, Reuven is testifying on this, but he's signing in the name of his father Yaakov. In other words, he's using his father's name as his form of signature. I guess from Reuven's perspective, he thinks it's some type of honor or cover that he's giving to his father. To which the Gemara says, no, chas v'shalom, lo shavik in the shmei didei v'chasim b'shmei da'avua. The Gemara says, a person does not go ahead. Now, by the way, the Rashbam points out over here, if you look at the Rashbam, 161b, second line down in the Rashbam, v'dilma b'shmei da'avua, Yaakov chasam Reuven, so maybe, right, so v'chein min hago lachtom lechavot aviv. So maybe, again, Reuven has a lot of derech eretz for his father. He mamish reveres his father to the point that he signs his father's names, on documents, on checks, all kinds of things, all out of kavod. Right, so he signs his father's name as a form of kavod, to which the Gemara says, people don't do that. People don't do that. There are plenty of ways that one should and could honor their father, but signing his name and using it as yours is not a form of kavod. Lo shavik inish shmei didei v'chasim b'shmei da'avua. A person is not going to go ahead and literally, again, not use his own name in order to sign in the name of his father. People just don't do that. Says the Gemara, interesting. V'dilma simna ba'amu d'shavye. So maybe you're right. Maybe, remember, what we're trying to figure out over here is, how is it that a get makusha somehow is protected against any type of tampering or forgery? So that's what we're just trying to figure out. So remember, again, essentially what we've done is we've shown the witnesses are signing from they're signing perpendicular to the text. So they're beginning their name on the last line of the text and writing upwards. So therefore, again, if somebody lops off some bottom lines of text, we're going to see because names are missing. The Gemara is just pointing out it's not tamper-proof, because even if part of the name is missing, in other words, maybe there's a different narrative. In other words, so again, even if Ruvain Ben is missing, maybe Yaakov Eid. Okay, so maybe signing the name of his father. People don't sign the name of their father. Maybe he's using his father's signature as a symbol, the Gemara is suggesting. That's the Gemara is suggesting now. The Gemara says, V'domo simna ba'amuhu deshavye. Maybe Ruvain is not really signing his father's name as his own, but rather he uses his father's name as a symbol. And I think I was going to present the idea that some people, when they signed documents, they used a symbol instead of an actual signature. The Rav Tzair Kura. Rav would sign with a fish. He would make an image of a fish, and that was Rav's signature. Rashbam points out to Rav Tzair Kura. He says, Tzuras hadak haya ose b'shtaros b'mokom chasimaso. That's what Rav would do. Instead of actually writing his name, he would write the image of a fish, and this was his signature. Ukvayadua li olam shazeu chasimaso. Omol kechasimas shmo. So again, so the idea over here is that this was Rav's signature. So you see, and whenever you saw a fish, that was Rav's signature, and that's what he used. That symbol was his signature. Now the Rashbam points out over here, he says, "V'mafarish tamai tzayir kuvra v'charusa eno elatoa v'shema al shem ma'aseim zen nog lechol dogim v'zeh b'tmarim v'simna ba'amei osim." Rashbam points out something very interesting, that there is nothing special about this symbolism. In other words, the Rashbam says people try to find deeper symbolisms in that. Rav, we're going to see, so let's read the rest. Rav Tzair Kovra, right? So Rav went ahead and used the fish as a symbol. Rabbi Chanina Tzair Charusa. Rabbi Chanina would use a date palm. That's how he would sign documents, with the symbol of a date palm. Rav Chisda Samech. So Rav Chisda used the Samech. All right, so that kind of makes a lot of sense. Chisda Samech. Okay. Rav Hoshia Ayin. Rav Hoshia used an Ayin, also a letter from his name. Rava Barafuna Makusa. And Rava Barafuna used to draw the mast of a ship. So I just want to point out, so again, the point the Gemara is making over here is that people sometimes don't sign with their names, they sign with symbols. Now, just before we go on, so the Rashbam says, it's such a fascinating Rashbam. Go back for a second. He says, people try to figure out, V'mefarish tama mai tzair kuvra v'charusa ena elatoa v'shema shema same zenag lecha. So Rashbam says, everybody tries to find deeper meanings. Why did Rav use a fish, right? And why did Rabbi Chanina use a date palm? Rav Chisda Samech, Rav Hoshia, and Ayin. So Rashbam says, maybe Rav liked to eat fish, and maybe Rabbi Chanina liked to eat dates, and Rav Chisda just used the Samech because it's a letter in his name. And Rav Hoshia used the Ayin because it's a letter in his name. Rabbi Rav Huna liked ships, he liked boats, so he used the mast. So Rashbam says, don't read anything additional into it, which I will say is such a profound Musar Haskell. Sometimes in life, things just are what they are. In other words, not everything has a deeper meaning. And I know this sounds strange because we spend so much time trying to find the deeper meaning, like in everything we learn. But maybe there's an application like this. I think this is an important yisod, especially when it comes to relationships. You ever have an interaction with someone, and this happens, I think, all the time in marriage, as it happens with friends and others as well. Someone says something, and you're like, what did they really mean? And meanwhile, what they really meant is exactly what they said. There is no deeper meaning. There's no hidden, you don't need your Frosted Flakes decoder ring in order to be able to discover, well, what did my wife really mean? What did my husband really want to say? What did my friend, sometimes it is just what it is. And you could just take the statement, the conversation at face value, and not read anything else into it. It's so beautiful. On one hand, we're conditioned to always look deeper, and we're conditioned to always dig deeper, always try to understand. But it's important sometimes, I think, especially in relationships and especially in interpersonal interactions, to be able to take things for what they are and not read anything additional into it. Incredible. Rashbam says, stop trying to be ma'ayin, stop trying to understand deeper understandings. It just is what it is. So that's the Gemara. So maybe Ruvain ben Yaakov is in fact signing, so he's not using his father's name Yaakov as a signature, but rather he's using his father's name Yaakov as a symbol, and that's how he's signing. To which the Gemara says, no. Lo chatzif inish l'shavi l'shmei. Sorry, lo chatzif. I'm sorry. Gemara says lo chatzif inish l'shavi l'shmei davu asimna. Gemara says no, that'd be a chutzpah. Person would never take his father's name and convert it into a symbol. That would be inappropriate. That absolutely does not work. And therefore, halacha l'maisa, again, you don't have to worry about that. A person would not use their father's name as a symbol. So again, two things. A person wouldn't go ahead and use their father's name as their own signature, and a person wouldn't convert their father's name into a symbol. Okay, beautiful. So the Gemara says like this. We'll say, so now we're just still trying to figure out, so how is it? So it sounds like you still can potentially tamper with the get makusha. To which Marzucha comes along. Marzucha Amar Lama Lecha Kulehai. What are you guys getting all worked up about? Kol makusha she'ein edav kalin b'shita achos pasol. So the Gemara says like this, and this is really profound. So the Gemara says, Marzucha says essentially as follows. What are you getting all worked up about? The way it has to work, ultimately, again, with a get makusher, is that in order for it to work, the get makusher, all of the witnesses' names have to end, or have to really begin and really begin on the same line. Colin, look at the Rashman for just a moment. Marzutra Amar Lam Lecha, it's about 3 lines up from before it gets wide. Kol Hani Shinuyi Dechiki Rabbi Yirmiyah Bar Abba, Hachi Yisraeli Shekol Shtar Makusha Ve'edim Chasumi B'chutz, Achar Eksav La'arko, Merosho L'Sofo, Bein milamala, bein milamata, ve'ein edav kalin b'shita achos, pasol, she'aschilu lachtom b'shava, zeh tachas zeh, u'lesayim b'shava. So we'll say, so Marzucha says something absolutely amazing, that really what has to happen over here, and again, we'll talk about this more in tomorrow's daf a little bit. I wish I would want to be able to give you a diagram of this. Okay, so the idea over here is that when the Eidim begin to sign, remember, going with the idea that the Eidim sign perpendicular to the text. When they begin to sign, they're all starting at the same point. They're all starting at the same point. So the Gemara says like this. So because of that, so let's say it's like Ruvain ben Yaakov, Chaim ben Yechiel, Shalom ben Shlomo. So if you lop off that bottom line, that means you're lopping off all of the first names. It would be very strange to have 3 witnesses who none of them use their first name, right? They all use their father's name or a symbol or this. In other words, so because we're starting all the signatures on the same lines, right? So again, remember, adopting the idea that the witnesses are not signing across the width of the shtar like we thought before, like literally on the opposite side of the text, but rather the witnesses are signing perpendicular to the text. They're starting from the bottom line up, and all 3 witnesses, because remember again, for Makush you need a minimum of 3, you can have more, but you can need a minimum of 3 witnesses. All 3 witnesses are starting writing their name from the last line of text, going upwards. So because they're all starting at the same line of text, therefore halacha l'maisa, if you lop off that last line, and now all 3 witnesses don't have a first name there, very strange. And that would certainly arouse suspicion, and that ultimately, again, prevents from any tampering with this shtar. All right, we're going to stop over here for today. Shkech l'bava shorter daf, but tremendous. We'll pick up. I'm as much as we can start the next sugya. The next sugya really goes on to Amud Aleph, and Amud Aleph is a very small Amud Aleph, so we'll save it for tomorrow. Looking forward to being back with everybody live in person. A zechus with all of you. Have a wonderful day, Chevra.